Positive Lens Podcasts. I'm your host, Scott T. Each week, we will bring you positive law enforcement news stories from across the globe, shared by departments and citizens like yourself. In our Getting to Know Your Local Leo segment, we will speak with a member of the law enforcement community about everyday life and most things non-law enforcement, as we hope to adjust your focus so you see that members of your local law enforcement community are not much different than you and me.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to episode 30. This is part 2 of Getting to Know Your Local Leo with the Chief of Police from the Meridian Police Department in Meridian, Idaho, Chief Tracy Basterrechea. We pick up where we left off, discussing the tremendous amount of work that goes into branding cattle and the sheer number of calves branded. He also shares with us his favorite shows to watch, favorite country singer, and New Year's Eve specialty dish. Plus, we talk about the amazing piece of legislation passed in the state of Idaho to assist officers dealing with post-traumatic stress injury, how the city of Meridian helps keep them financially whole, and how you can become a part of the great culture at the Meridian Police Department. Let's get started with part 2. To put it in perspective, I know you had, like I said, you were doing the branding a couple weeks in a row. You had to get them together. For the listeners, tell about a little bit how that experience works for those who've never been around it and the vast number of cattle you actually have been branding in the last few weeks.
Yeah, so the first week of it was a little bit easier because they were all pretty contained. So you have to go out and you have to gather all your cows and your calves together, and you'll use four-wheeler, side-by-sides, and horses both. Get them gathered into a large pen, and then you have to sort them. So you have to sort the calves away from the cows, and you'll run your cows through a chute where you'll doctor them and brand, not usually brand them, it depends on them, but you'll doctor the cows, and then the calves you'll doctor and you'll brand, you'll throw the first week we roped them. So you'll have one person rope the head, one person rope the heels, spread them out, and then you get them down and you'll brand them, and you'll make sure that their, lack of a better term, that their nuts haven't dropped, or that you banded them and they've fallen off. And if they haven't and they're up in there, you got to cut the scrotum open, reach down in there and get those out, and then cut them and do those things. So we did, we probably did 100 the first week, and then the last week we did probably 400 calves. We gathered the calves and the heifers on Friday off the desert. So that was a little more work. We have to get them all
round them up off the desert.
Round them up off the desert and go through there, make sure we're not missing any, and then get them into a large corral, and then make sure that we made the one guy who runs the operation, his son and one of their hands stayed out there overnight, because they'll push their ways out, especially if you have a calf on the outside out of your pen. Those heifers they'll literally just push through that fence to get to their calves. And so then again that morning you come in and we push them all into smaller pens and sort them, and then you start the whole process. And we did about 400 calves that day, 4 to almost 500 calves. So it was a long day. We started early in the morning and finished about 7 o'clock in the evening, and just it's a good long day. It's fun, and
I'm sure most people don't think of police officers out there branding cattle.
Yeah, probably not.
I mean, it's not just the branding. Like, so that's the end result you're getting to, right? But all the work that goes along there, like you said, if nothing is dropped and you're having to cut and having to reach in and pull them out, that's the dirty part of the work. That's actually, that's not the fun part.
Yeah,
so,
but it's a good day, though. It really, it's one of those days when you're done, you just feel good about it.
Yeah, and I said, I always like to think when you're out with when you're out in the open, and like I said, when you're hiking with your wife or you're working with the cattle, when you're part of nature, it's also different. You're connecting with nature, the elements. Like I said, all the rest of that stuff that goes on in the other worlds doesn't exist out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't think about any of that stuff because you're in the moment enjoying what's there.
Yep, I tell people it's my therapy right there.
Yeah, it's a great form of it. And I saw a picture some time ago that I always go back to and I think about how much we clutter our minds with, and it was a fake picture, or a cartoon drawing. It was a man walking a dog, and it's showing what the guy's thinking, and it's this bubble of everything he's going on in his life, and then they show the dog, and it's the only thing the dog is thinking about is the tree that's in front of him. That's it.
Yeah.
But it's so often that we clutter our minds so much that we never actually enjoy the moment sometimes and take in and just live in that. And when you're out with nature, whether it's branding, hiking, riding horses, it doesn't matter what it is, you truly we transcend ourselves and seem to enjoy those moments more. And that's like I said, it's our therapy, it's our release. And I think we all need that. It's essential.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
so when you don't get a chance, though, to go out and enjoy nature and you're stuck indoors, weather's bad, is it a show that you like, your wife likes, or is there a movie where you can sit down and say, you know what, let's just watch some TV today? Is that something that you guys have as part of the family setup, or just that too slow paced?
No, we've gotten better about it. We use, and I'm a little ADD. I have trouble sitting, but we like to watch movies. I'm a huge John Wayne fan. Grew up watching John Wayne, so if there's a John Wayne movie on, it's one of the reasons we have one of the wineries we go to. It's a Western theme. It's an old milking barn. It's great, and they have John Wayne movie on every time you go in there. It's just kind of their thing, and so John Wayne movies are certainly thing. If it's just me, I could sit and watch those all day long.
Well, they're classics too.
Yeah, her not so much. Documentaries, I love documentaries, and usually not the true crime documentaries. I like documentaries on people and lives, and there's a great one out there on Netflix, and it's on this semi-pro hockey team out of New Jersey called the Trashers, and it's a true document. This mob guy buys a hockey team for his son, and they're talking to the players, they're talking to the people that were involved, and it is just. I could watch that thing 1,000 times because it's just hilarious when you look at what they did and how they did it, and and anything that'll make you laugh. I don't know if you've ever seen Letterkenny.
I have not. No, I have not seen that one.
Canadian comedy, and we watch it, and it's hilarious. I mean, anything like that. Sports. I'm a huge sports. Love watching sports. MMA, boxing, college football. Not so much pro football. I'll watch some of that, but love watching college football for sure.
Yeah, I am concerned how the NIL will impact college athletes, and it won't have. I think the vast majority of schools aren't impacted as much as your higher echelon schools, of course. But to me, that I don't want to say taints it, but it certainly changes college football. And I just saw University of Tennessee had a player who's not going to be there because he wanted more money. And that concept when it comes to collegiate sports is still tough to grasp. But I don't know if that's because it wasn't that way when I was younger, or it just feels like the monetization of the position and the role.
We had an interesting discussion about how do we think maybe this movement is going to affect us in our workforce. It's hard enough to recruit as it is. Now you have people who are probably making more money doing that than they would even coming to take a job as a police officer. So how does that affect and skew how you recruit and who you're going to hire when you're going to college and you're getting paid pretty darn good money just to be there sometimes?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And what will that do to our workforce now? Because most of those athletes, even some of those athletes that are getting paid some NIL money, aren't going to make it in the NFL or make it into the pro sports, and they're coming back into the workforce. So what does that look like for everybody?
It's true, and I think there's a misconception, and people don't understand it just sometimes because they don't pay attention to sports, and others that do. When you take the number of athletes playing, let's use football for the example, right? The number of college football players across the country versus truly the number that get drafted every year or gets free agent signings, it's minimal. I mean, when they talk about the top 1%, it's probably less than 1%.
Yeah.
So, all those individuals do have to go back into society and contribute in some form or another. So. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, you try to stay away from the true crime shows. You probably see too much of that on your own. It's like they have the show about it. It's very true. But you mentioned you like biographies. But if there's an unsolved mystery out there, if you had the chance to figure out the answer to, or if you could be on the cold case, or it doesn't have to be a police mystery, any mystery that across our history that you'd like to be able to solve.
The one that's always interested me, and I know they've released all the information, but the Kennedy assassination has always intrigued me. And there's lots of theories out there now, of course.
Right.
And I'm still not sure that I believe those with everything that's been released. But that's one that has always been of interest to me. Gosh, I'm trying to think. There was the guy that did the bank robbery and then parachuted out, and they never found him here in the Pacific Northwest, actually. Gosh, I can't remember his name now, but they always had lots of shows about him. That one's kind of an interesting.
Well, we have that one, and then we have the Escape from Alcatraz. They made that movie, a Clint Eastwood movie, and you really never know if the person ever made it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Kennedy one captivates so many of us, whether we are around during a time period, not around, the history of it. It's just because there's so much involved with that case and such an impactful. I mean, he was a war hero. His father certainly had his power.
Yeah.
And that assassination had impact on politics, impact on individuals. He was the youngest president I think ever elected at the time. There's so much involving the individual, the family, the name, the conspiracies around his lifestyle. Yes. And then you throw the assassination into it, which is a whole nother set of conspiracies. And, somewhere in between there's probably a truth. We just haven't figured it out. And I don't know, like you said, the release of the files and what we have, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever truly get the answer.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it's just an interesting overall case for sure.
It is. And it would, even now today with all the technology we have and the DNA and the forensics, what we've received as evidence, I think would still be hard to crack.
Yeah, absolutely. I
mean, granted, we'd have more cameras around, right? There'd be cameras in every street pole, and there'd be 17 cars around the presidential motorcade other than a couple, and not going to be riding open with the convertible anymore. So it's certainly some changes that we've learned from that time period.
Yeah, I'm always, everyone's convinced the government's done it. And I always tell everybody, have you ever known our government to be that effective and efficient that or that people are going to keep their mouths shut about what they've done? But who knows?
That's honestly one of the most interesting parts of it, though, is like you said that, I mean, people have come out and said things over the years, and then you turn around and they're releasing a book, they're releasing a movie. You've never had someone who really come out and said something with no ulterior motive to it. And that's unique. I think that show came out now. It's Mafia Spies, I think it's called. And part of that show incorporates the Kennedy assassination, I believe, because of the relationship with Cuba. And I haven't finished watching. I was told about the show last month, and I watched a few episodes, and I stopped. But yeah, to finish watching it. Now, you played sports. You're involved in activities, certainly a lot of active parts. But starting a band today, we're going to have the Meridian Police Department, the quartet, the five. What instrument are you playing? What role are you playing in that band?
I would be probably playing a steel guitar. I'm a big country music fan, so big Waylon Jennings fan. My favorite of all time.
Waylon Jennings is phenomenal. My daughter is unfortunately, they've never seen the Dukes of Hazzard, but I'm like, honey, just listen to the theme song. That's Waylon Jennings. That's it.
Absolutely. No, I can listen to him all day long. It's.
And he's one of the 4 original Highwaymen.
Yes,
I believe. With him, Johnny Cash,
Chris Christopherson, and Willie Nelson.
Yeah. And then they.
And he was supposed to be on the plane with Buddy Holly.
Was he?
Yes.
I did not know that.
He was played, I believe, bass for Buddy Holly. But he was supposed to be flying, and their bus was always breaking down, and so people were catching colds and sick. And the Big Bopper, who was terrified of flying, apparently was not feeling well, and said, "Can I have your place on the seat?" And so Waylon Jennings gave his seat up to him on the plane. And Waylon Jennings always regretted Buddy Holly told him, I hope that damn bus breaks down on you.
Oh.
And Waylon Jennings said, I hope your plane crashes.
Oh, wow.
And he said, he always regretted that but that
You
friendly
don't know at the
banter
time.
back and
Yeah.
forth. And so yeah, he was one of in Buddy Holly's band members.
Well, I didn't know he was supposed to be on. I knew the story about the Big Bopper was sick, but I didn't realize the tie into Waylon Jennings.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and again, to think about that difference. I mean, he has to have some level of survivor's guilt too at some point, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
He has to. And I mean, we didn't just lose 1, 2, 3 musicians, and
Yeah.
Richie Valens was young at the time.
Yeah.
Buddy Holly, Big Bopper, they had their records. People knew who they were. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to say a generation was lost, but certainly a meaningful amount of music changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and
now,
you wonder, where would
ahead.
Waylon Jennings be if, I mean, if that none of that had happened, would he still just be a band member with Buddy Holly, or
yeah, because he went from a band member to a solo
Yeah.
career, and not solo career, but a front man of the
Yeah.
And you wonder how much of his music was inspired by that event that we don't even know about.
Yeah.
So steel guitar, not an easy one to play. Do you play
Yeah.
it now?
No, heck no. I have no musical talent whatsoever.
Now, has the department ever utilized you for any of those events where they do for fundraisers or have some fun? They stick you out there and made you sing, dance, perform any shows, comedy?
No. No.
I know sometimes with fundraisers, you guys do some interesting, colorful events to, for the community and different times. But all right, that's good. They haven't put you out there to embarrass you, so that's good to know.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Now, you mentioned that you like hosting events and you like having people over, having dinners with folks, and you mentioned grilling with the tailgate party. So, if you're having the party, who's preparing the meal? Is it you, your wife, catering? Who's the preparation?
So it would depend. It depends on what we're making. If we're grilling, I'm going to at least do part of it. She'll do all the sides for sure. So grilling is definitely my gig. Hers is the sides and all of those things. We like to, usually around New Year's we make beef tongue.
Okay.
A Basque recipe and so I usually do that. She doesn't want anything to do with the preparation of it, because you boil it for about probably an hour and a half at least.
Well, that's because you have to break down all the muscle tissue on that to get it tender.
And then you peel off the outer casing, and then we slice it and batter it and cook it up a little bit, and then we put it in this spicy tomato pepper sauce, and really good. So we do that. So we kind of share those duties. If we have people over, I'm definitely the bartender. If we have people over.
Is it primarily wine though, or is it?
Oh no, we'll do mixed drinks, and my dad actually bartended for a period of time as well, and so I have his old little bartending book with some recipes in it. And
That's pretty
so
cool. Probably recipes you won't find anywhere else.
Yeah, from a long time ago, and so I'll do the bartending part of it, and usually if it's my friends that are over, it's pretty easy. It's usually a straight bourbon, so you don't have to do much. Sometimes an old fashioned, but
old fashioned take a little bit more work if you're going to be using Augustine bitters or anything in it, right? But
yep.
So you mentioned also that you've had some really proud moments, especially with your son, right? And the accomplishments that you had raising him and your wife, and the advice that you received and you passed on, you share with us. But if you were to say, what is your greatest accomplishment as an individual and as a professional, what would you say those are for you? And I don't mean accomplishments necessarily by accolades, but accomplishments for yourself that we talked about, the intrinsic feeling. Like, what is your most proud moments?
There is no doubt, my wife would tell you the same thing, who our son has become at this point. I mean, people a lot of times, I mean, even out branding, our friends are they're like, man, that's a good kid, right? He just is very respectful. He really is a good person. So, no doubt, raising him is by far our greatest accomplishment, bar none. Professionally, you know, I can't put a thumb on one. I would say helping some people succeed and promote and do things, mentoring those people. There's some officers here that were on the bubble, right? I mean, we're having some deals, and being able to have those conversations with them and help guide them, and now they're successful and doing great things in our department, right? Yes. I think that's when you look back, you go, well, I may have had a little bit of an impact there, and that's the accomplishment that you want.
Yes.
That I want anyway. If I can look and say, you know, what we did helped this person become a better person, helped this person become a better husband and a better father, or a better wife and mother, that's a huge accomplishment for me anyway.
Yes. No, without a doubt. And I think, the part that you mentioned, through the crest of leadership, you encounter individuals who are doing well, people who you knew aren't doing well, but then you have those people who are like, they're cheating on the edge. And if we ignore it, we know it usually falls off. But a lot of times in leadership, just from our experience, our trainings, our going through it, we see something in them that we know is there, and they may not even see it in themselves yet. And when you can take that person from teetering to tipping to their good side, and then progressing, it's one of the greatest compliments I think of leadership, to see our people get to grow and get promoted and do well. Kind of go back to what we said about the community and good and growing up, is that you wanted to see people's success. And I think that's such a key attribute of leaders, to want to see the success of their people around them, even if it means they're getting promoted above them or elsewhere. So, and again, that goes to your education background again too. You're educating those individuals.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, that really is a big deal. We always tell everybody, listen, we can fix mistakes of the mind, not mistakes of the heart.
Right.
But man, sometimes people get in a rut and they just can't get out, and that accountability piece is important. But with that accountability piece is also making sure you're supporting them through that, and making sure that you're directing them and helping them make the strides that they need to make to be successful. Absolutely. And what I've found is when we've had people in those situations and we're kind of giving them that last chance, this is the one, you gotta make a change, or we're gonna have to make the change.
Right.
And I'll tell them, hey, there's other officers here that have been in the same spot you're sitting in, and they're more than willing to sit down and talk with you and explain to you where they were and how they got out of that, and they're successful here now. And the ones who have said, yeah, I'd love to talk to them, are the ones who've gone on to be successful, and the ones that are like, no, I'm good. Almost to the T, those are the ones that fall off, right? The ones that, no, I'm good, I've got this. But the ones that go, no, I probably need to talk, so I need a little bit of help. And I think it's the same way even when it comes to just our careers in, going to counseling and doing those things. I'm not afraid to tell my officers, hey, I've gone to counseling. We've gone to marriage counseling. I get it. I know what it's like. There's no stigma to it. These are the things you need to do to be successful. And I think more as leaders, we have to share that, not just, hey, this is good for you, but by the way, I've done it. I've been where you're at. I've been at those low points in my marriage and in my life and and I had an old football coach. He said, and I actually heard it from a kid that was playing for him. I was watching one of their practices, and this kid comes in, and some guys were giving him a hard time, and he's this great big Islander kid. I mean, he's a big kid. And one of the kids says, well, why didn't you just pull those two dudes out of the car and knock the hell out of them? You could have done it. And this kid was great, and he'd come from he'd actually come from a detention center and was going to the school to play football. And he says, you know what Coach Milligan always says? Life's about decisions. And he says, if I would have made that decision, I wouldn't be at practice today. And that just stuck with me. And I always, life's about decisions. And
Yes.
when we're in those moments where we're struggling, we can make the decision to either see the light and where we're going to go to make things better, or we can sit in that dark hole and take that other turn. So I think one of the big things is, as leaders, we've got to explain to people we've been there as well. And this is where what we did to get out of that. And when things are rough in your department or your city or as the leader, you've got to be the optimist. You don't have to be Pollyannish, but you've got to be the one that can see the light and tell people, hey, listen, I get it. We're having some struggles here, but stick with us. This is where we're going to end up. This is where we're going. And I think too many times we fail to do that as leaders.
Yeah, and I think like you said, because we have to have the vision, and we have to, if there's vision statements, yes, but we have to have the vision of where we're going as well. And I always tell people, if you want to get them from point A to point B, you have to at least give them the explanation as to why you're going on that journey. Because if you just come and tell me you need to make a left, make a right, make a left, but you're not telling me where I'm going, now I'm basically being led blindly. But if you tell me what that vision is, you're looking at what I'm trying to accomplish, now I'm getting buy-in from you. And possibly you might even offer solutions or suggestions to help us make that path better for all of us. But it does start with their leadership, especially change happens. Change happens in the workplace, change happens in life, and we have to embrace it as much as possible in a leadership role. Even the things we don't agree with them, we have to embrace it enough because we need to bring the troops with us, right? We need to bring the team with us. But I want to go to something else you said with that, because I think what Idaho has done, I think, is phenomenal. You talk about individuals being in a dark spot and who go through life. You'd mentioned in our previous discussions about they have created the ability for individuals who are going through critical incidents or possibly have suffered some levels of PTSD due to those incidents that they've now put into the state legislature to help with officers. Can you explain that to the listeners? Because I think that is a phenomenal thing that the state has, and I don't think all states are doing it, but it's probably something you should listen to.
Yeah, so the mental health aspect has always been a little bit tricky in law enforcement, and
Right.
If anyone's been in law enforcement, they know it. When I came up, it was suck it up, move on, hold those things in. And what we found over time is certainly that even if it's not one huge incident, we have all these little incidents that build up. So probably you're not getting out of this career without some type of PTSI. We call it post-traumatic stress injury, because that's what it is. And so several years ago, we actually had an officer in our department, hadn't been here long, had come from another agency, was in FTO and ended up committing suicide on duty. And I became very close with his father, and through all of that and working on different things. And so one of the things, the fire union and the Fraternal Order of Police and everybody got together and said, what can we do about this? And so we went to the state legislature and we lobbied for post-traumatic stress injuries to be covered under workman's comp. And so if we see a situation now where we believe it's one of those incidents that could possibly add to this stuff, baby death, teen suicide, or you're involved in a shooting or any of those things, we are having our supervisors try to document those things as we go as workman comp claim. We don't turn them in. We document those so that when the officer comes and says, I need some help, or we see that they need some help, we go, hey, we've already got the ball rolling, contact HR, and they will go to and get workman's comp approved for them. And so far, we've had several officers who've utilized it. Some that have come back and are back at work doing great things, and some that it just was too much. It just wasn't the job for them. Hadn't been in the profession long and saw some pretty ugly things early on, and were like, I'm moving on. But during that time, while we're trying to get them healthy, they were covered under workman's comp, and huge benefit, I think, to officers.
I think it's phenomenal. No, I think it's a phenomenal thing. I was talking to an officer who went through an incident recently, and they don't have this option. So they're having to use their PTO, they're having to use their sick time, trying to recover on their holiday time. And then they run out of that, and now they're not getting paid. And they're being, the word stigmatized gets used, good and bad, but they're being stigmatized based on what they need help for. And now they're beating themselves up because when they get recovery, they have no time off anyway. They've used it all to recover from an incident, only to them be feeling worse afterwards.
Yeah, and the great thing about our city as well is, so under workman's comp, you don't get paid your full salary. So, but our city picks up that so that you remain whole, your paycheck remains whole. And so that's a huge benefit from our city to take care of that for our officers. And it's just it's such a huge thing that has been ignored for too long. You know, and one of the things that we try to do is when it's an incident that we're a critical incident, we try to set up a critical incident stress debrief days later. And it's optional, but we open it up to the officers that were involved, we open it up to the paramedics or the firemen that were involved, and we open it up to the dispatchers as well, because we know those dispatchers oftentimes aren't getting any closure from some of these incidents, yet maybe they're on the phone walking somebody through how to give CPR, and then the officers get there and the line's cut off, and then they don't really hear how this comes to fruition, or they do hear and it's a bad outcome or whatever. So we invite those dispatchers, and we also open it up to our records clerks, because they're the ones that see the pictures and read those reports and those things, and we're realizing that they're being affected by these things as well, or watching body-worn camera footage. So we tried to open that up and have everybody come in, and we've gotten a lot of really good feedback on that, and really good feedback from some officers that have come from other places, from actual larger agencies in other states, that they're like, they were leery of coming first, and then when they got there, they were like, wow, this was really neat. We didn't have this ability where I came from. We didn't do these things. And so really, I think oftentimes Idaho really is ahead of the curve on a lot of things, and people don't realize it. Maybe I should knock on wood that they don't, because everybody's moving here anyway because of what we have. But it's a big deal. You know, you can't expect officers to go out and do their job and help people if they're not healthy themselves.
Correct.
And I think we've really got to be mindful of that and everybody handles things a little bit differently as well, and we have to realize that.
I'll tell you, Chief, I've never thought about the records clerk portion of it. I mean, I thought about the dispatchers because they're the first responder in terms of the fact they get the phone call first, right?
Yep.
But I've never thought about the records clerk. But you're correct, because they're going through the footage, and watching some of those videos is brutal. Seeing pictures, especially when they have no context to it, they're seeing it and they don't have any closure, or they hear about it, right? But they don't.
Yep.
They don't get it to that point. That's unique. I think it's phenomenal. Like I said, what you're doing there, and the fact that Meridian is picking up that difference to help keep officers whole. It gives them one less stressor. We know financial stressors is the major stress for individuals, for personals, life, families, everything. So you guys are doing great things there. And let's talk about that, though, because incorporate this together how you'd like. You've changed the culture of Meridian for the better. You've done a lot of great things there. So can you tell us a little about that culture shift? And also, you said you have an academy starting in October. Why individuals would want to come work for Meridian?
Yeah, so we started the culture shift years ago. I remember having an FTO who was also a sergeant, and a few of the other guys that are still here will remember it. But when you would come to work here, you literally would just badmouth the place, and the employees and their welfare really was secondary to anything. And so at one point I was looking at going elsewhere, and some sergeant spots had opened up, and a lieutenant kind of hit me upside the head and says, hey, you're always complaining about the culture and this and that, and you want to make things better. He goes, here's your opportunity. He said, you can either test, he says, or if you don't test, I don't want you complaining about who's above you, or you can run away. And I was like, dang, kind of put me on the spot here. And so I was like, you know what? I'll promote. I'm going to try to promote. And did, and then started recruiting some other guys saying, hey, listen, we can change this, we can do this. And I'll tell you, it wasn't until probably culture shift is a big thing. And it was probably 11 years into it that I finally was like, oh, wow, things have changed. It was those little incremental things, but they're changing. And so for me, you know, the big thing is I just stress that when you come here, from day one, you're a member of our police family. The first day, we don't give you a little badge that says recruit or cadet or any of that stuff. We consider you a police officer when you come here. And we're going to treat you like family. We don't run a stress academy. We're not going to sit and scream at you and break you down. I tell everybody, we're not raising war soldiers. We're raising police officers. We're creating problem solvers and servants to our community. And if we treat you poorly within the four walls of our building, I'm a firm believer that when you get a little bit of that power, you're going to exert that over the people that you're policing and that you're interacting with.
100%.
And so everything we try to do is very, very intentional. And, you know, when we have every officer that comes through, every lateral that comes through, every new, I tell them, the quickest way to lose your job with our police department is simple. Be an asshole, and you will no longer have a job here. Quicker than anything. Because we realize everybody makes mistakes, but if you can't treat people well, then you don't belong in our police department. And do we get it right every single time? Do we get every call right No, we don't. But we are going to try to, and we're going to learn from those mistakes, and we're going to try to do better, but we're going to treat you well. And that doesn't matter whether you're a good guy or a bad guy. If you're a bad guy, I still expect you to be treated with respect and dignity. If the time comes that we need to use force, we're going to use force. We're going to stop using force when they stop resisting, and we're going to dust them off and treat them like the human being that they deserve to be treated like. And I think that's gone a long ways for us. And I've, just recently doing some job offers to people, and I was like, why here? Why are you coming? Why was this the place you chose to come to work for? And almost every single person I have come through there says, it just felt different. Literally, when I walked through the front door, it felt different. And then when I went to briefing, it was just different. And riding with your officers, they just treated me, I could see the camaraderie, and it felt more like a family environment. And I had one tell me the other day, I rode with several different agents, and he goes, and it just was different. He goes, it was just the feel of when I got here. It just felt different. And I think that's culture.
Correct.
That's your culture, is how does it feel? Not what you say, not the words on the wall, but how does it feel when somebody outside of your organization comes in? And I think that's a great compliment to our men and women of this agency. They're phenomenal people. Inside doing the job, but outside the job, they're just good people. And that's really what we're looking for, is we want good people. We can make you a good cop. But I can't make you a good person if you come here and you're not a good person. That ship's already sailed.
Right, yeah. The two different sets of skill sets there. So for individuals, hearing this podcast, or individuals who are learning or wanting to learn about becoming a Meridian police officer, what is the best place for them to go and seek the opportunity, especially with the academy going now and one starting in October?
Go online to join meridianpd.org. And I'll hold this up. It probably won't skew, but we had a little...
The QR code? Okay.
QR code.
And we'll also make sure we put the joinmeridianpd.org in the show notes as well, so individuals will be able to have that link.
And you'll be contacted by one of our recruiting people probably within 24 hours at the most. And I think once you talk to our recruiters and once you come visit, we have phenomenal facilities here. Our city has done just a great job of taking care of us. We have a whole training center. We have a scenario village. We have this main police campus right here, and then we have a whole other police campus north, not just a little sub-state, but full service police station north. Our city's planned for the growth, and
tremendous growth you're getting.
Yes, but I'll tell you, if you want to have a fulfilling career and a fulfilling, just a noble profession, policing's it. And a little biased, but I'd say the people at Meridian are the ones you want to be around, because they're going to care about you inside work and outside of work, and it's a great family atmosphere. And like I say, we have phenomenal people that work here that make this thing go round, and they'll take care of you. They'll teach you to be great cops. They'll teach you to be great community service officers, data, whatever you're looking at. They'll embrace you, and they'll give you the help that you need to be successful. I tell every one of our people, our job is to make our recruits successful. And I know that if they're not successful at the end of everything we've done, it's not because we haven't done our part to help them. It just wasn't the profession for them. And I think that's held true.
Excellent. And it is true, because sometimes you don't realize it's not the right profession for you until you get to the end, and that's okay.
Yep.
It's better that you realize it's not the right profession before you go out and start serving the public.
Absolutely.
So, speaking of serving the public and what Meridian does, what do you think is the best way for the police officers in the community to continue to build those strong bridges to the communities they serve, so that cohesiveness exists and that collaboration exists between both, and that trust and respect is there?
Well, number one is, police the way it's intended to be done, right? The way you treat people is everything. I have a little quote on my back wall there, and it's my little tagline from Robert Kennedy that says, every community receives the kind of criminal it deserves, and by the same token, they get the type of policing they demand. And I think that's one of the things is our community really demands very professional policing. They demand it. They deserve it. And if you're professional, and if you're interacting with people and realizing that, those community members, you're going to be sitting next to them in church on Sunday, or you're going to be at the ball fields with them on Saturday, or whatever day, you're going to be interacting with them outside of the uniform. Remember that. I think it puts things in perspective. I think it helps you police just a little bit better. And, I want policing everywhere to be phenomenal, because if I have my family going through somewhere and they get pulled over, I want them to get the type of policing that I believe, that I know that our officers are giving our community. And that's just treating people with respect and dignity. It's that easy, I believe. Treat people the way you would want them to be treating you, and police the way you want your grandmother or your parents to be policed, and you're going to be just fine.
I once had a retired commander tell me that her leaders used to tell her, would you want them to treat your grandmother that way? Would you want them to treat your family that way? And that was always their constant reminder, is when you're treating somebody, would you want other officers to treating your family? And she said that was the one thing that always stuck with her, is that statement.
Yeah.
I mean, other things as well, but that was really one of the things that stood out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it goes to two things you said: respect and communication. We talked about communication in the very beginning and how essential it is. But if you can communicate all day, but if you don't treat people with respect, that communication also falls by the wayside, because they stop listening.
And they know it, right? It's not just what you say; it's how you say it.
Right.
And do you believe what you're saying?
So the question is, though, you've been in now, like I said, 28 years plus, right? If you had to do it all over again, would you still have chosen the police field?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Go ahead.
Do some things a little bit differently. Would hopefully mature in the job a little bit sooner. But yeah, absolutely. I say it all the time. People probably get tired of me saying it, but I believe it is the most noble, if not the most noble, one of the most noble professions in the world when you do it right. We do it right in the United States. And the only reason we're able to police the way that we police is because the community allows us to, because of that social contract. And no matter what laws you have in place, no matter what things you have in place, there are places across the world and even parts of this country where they aren't allowed to police the community because the community doesn't want them there because they've broken that trust. And that's sad. And that's what we all have to remember, is that is such a important and valuable thing for us to hold on to, is that trust between us and the community. And the only reason they're allowing us to do what we do is because they're allowing us to do what we do.
And it's a long road back once that trust is broken. It's an incredibly long road.
Sometimes you may never get it back. Yeah. So you want to make sure you're putting that money in that community bank so when you need it, you don't go bankrupt.
Correct. Outstanding analogy there. And for you, 28 years, your wife's been with you the entire time. You've had the rock at home. You've had everything going great with the family. You want people to treat your family the way you're treating theirs. But people, do have concerns about safety at times. So as the chief of police, if you were to offer up a safety tip to individuals in your community or around the country, what is the tip that they should practice for their overall safety?
Vigilance. Be aware of your surroundings. I think that, and I teach some personal safety classes. I always tell them they're not self-defense classes. You coming to an hour of a class doesn't do you any good, right? But if you think it's going to work, you're wrong. And I don't like those classes. So really, when I teach them, it's all about awareness. It's being aware of your surroundings. It's being aware of the scams that are out there and those things. If you're aware, you can avoid the problem, right? There's I call it the crime triangle or the victim triangle, right? You have to have a victim, you have to have opportunity, and you have to have a criminal. Take any one of those out of that triangle and you don't have a crime. So let's try to take being the victim and the opportunity out of that, and you're going to be much safer.
And to your point, if you have that situational awareness, if you have that awareness there, that's how you can easily remove yourself. Not easily, easier remove yourself from the situation.
The avoidance, that's what we want, right?
Yep. Well, Chief Tracy, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed you taking the time and speaking with us today, sharing personal stories, sharing the great things that you're doing with the Meridian Police Department, especially, again, the State of Idaho with the legislature. What you've done there, I think, is phenomenal. I hope more states, 49 more. I'm sure there are others already doing it, but I don't know if it's a majority. So I really think that's phenomenal. Working with individuals who are going through challenges, the PTSI, I think, is real. Officers experience it. It's always been there. It's like I said, just a changing of the culture and the stigma around it. So what you're doing is great. I appreciate everything you've shared with us and really taking the opportunity to join the podcast today. Again, we call this Getting to Know Your Local Leo because we want people to get to know you for who you are and see that police officers are just like the people they serve in many respects. Take away the badge, just flesh and bones, and they have lives and families. And as you said, they're at the ball fields, they're in the stores, they're out going about life. So we appreciate you taking the time to join the show today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, this was great. Thank you very much.
No, absolutely, and I hope to hear great things continue to come out of Meridian. And again, with the show notes, we'll include the link for recruiting, and then we'll hopefully we'll see more growth and development there. I said you said you're 13 officers down, so you have spots available.
Yeah.
So that's great there. And so again, we'll stay in contact, sir. I appreciate your time again today, and look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Anything I can do to help you, you let me know.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chief. We'll talk again soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, take care now.
If you liked this episode, follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. Provide us your feedback in the comments and leave us a rating or review. We truly appreciate your opinion. And then follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook to get all the latest updates. Remember, you can always find places that will share negative law enforcement news stories. But here, at Your Positive Lens, you will only find your positive law enforcement news stories. Once again, I'm your host, Scott T. Thanks for listening, and we'll capture you on the next